Well, the museum actually was started after 9/11 in 2001. It was started erecting it in 2000, but the push for the museum actually started to honor those of service from 9/11, including, all veterans, past and present. And it's dedicated to preserve the history of veterans within our community, our county, and throughout the state. We've got people that have brought family heirlooms that were from military to our museum because they have liked the presentation and how it's being preserved.
Okay, let's maybe somebody could talk on what kind of displays people are going to see.
Okay, alluding a little bit back, we started it out with about 30 uniforms in exhibit building number 2. And it was so impressive after the first year that people said, are you going to have that up next year? Well, it was only a 1-year thing. And from that year, the next year, we had this building up, and people have been impressed with it ever since and keep bringing stuff in. But we have uniforms of every branch, Merchant Marines. A lot of people don't realize what the Merchant Marines did. They were largely responsible for winning the war. Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. We have Coast Guard uniforms in there. There's a lot of that, along with machine guns, personal items that are invaluable to the people. But yeah, it's endless what's in there.
Okay, I see that you're building, it's a nice building to begin with, but now you're expanding. What's that about?
Pardon?
Maybe you could tell us something about what the new building, and why it's expanding and how it's expanding.
Go ahead, any. Fred?
Well, it's expanding because we're constantly trying to keep the public aware of what the military is doing around the world. And anybody knows our history, we know we're there, and we want the people to know about it.
But the addition came on largely because we were running out of room. We were having to omit stuff. People were so nice about bringing stuff in, and we were running out of room to exhibit without making it look like a garage sale, and we didn't want to do that. Some people were wondering why their stuff wasn't presented. Well, we don't have room. We have to alternate, and that's when we came up with the idea of the, we had a class tour here last October, and we were saying how it was 124th graders, and we were talking about how we needed to build on here. We were going to have to raise the money, and this one lady who was the wife, I didn't know her at the time, Brian Klein, he's the teacher of the building trades at Ogama Heights, and she said that my husband would love a project like this. So that whole addition that you see has been done since about the 15th of April, I believe. And this being the middle of June, they've done that classes, two classes. During the good weather, they've accomplished all of that. We haven't had to pay for the labor at all. They've done a tremendous job.
And that's within only 4 hours per day.
Really?
Yes.
Very good. Well, but maybe that you haven't had to pay for, but there's a lot of other things you do have to. How do you raise your funds?
We had a benefit to raise money out at Forwards and Quality Inn in West Branch, and they actually donated the meal through a grant. Very good meal. And the facilities, we had that, and one night we had the dinner. We did a PowerPoint presentation we took a lot of the pictures and put it on. I explained that because I do veteran stories, and we presented that, and then we had a live auction and a silent auction, and that night we raised almost $12,000. Wow. We've gotten
Good
some
night.
contributions through memorials, through funerals. It's a very giving community, And hopefully it'll continue to be that.
Now, do you have certain hours that you're open that people can come in and see the museum?
Go ahead, Charlie.
As of right now, we are open during the fair, but if we're contacted from a school or organization, we will come open the museum and give tours at any time.
Okay, and the fair is when?
The fair this year for 2016 is the 16th of August through the 20th.
It's normally in August, though.
Yes.
Yes, usually the second week in August.
What we're going to do is we're going to have our goal is to have a grand opening for the new portion of the museum on that Monday, which would be the 15th. We're going to have a flag raising, and then we're going to have a grand opening for the museum.
I just wondered if the other three guys that haven't said anything want to add something to this.
Just the fact that we've got stuff in there all the way back to the Civil War that people have donated, and it's on display in there. And it's just something that the kids really enjoy it, you know. They enjoyed going through there and seeing that stuff, and you know, in their history class, they're looking at pictures and hearing about stuff like that, and they can come here and they can actually see it, you know, and it makes a difference.
That's well, they're smarter than a lot of the kids around the country.
Yeah.
Well, they
we
did.
we
Go
have
ahead.
it set up is that basically everything is segmented in here by that particular time and place of, and they can relate to anybody that can relate to it for their grandfather, their dad, or mother, or whomever, or brothers, and they can go to that segment. But we've had everything here just jammed in because we've got so much, hence the reason we are expanding it. And each section is done like that for each part of the military. The thing we don't have too much of yet is special operations groups, as they are becoming more and more needed. So
Here he is.
you'll be in charge. You'll be a point man.
Well, and that's a good point. Maybe you would like just to say something to the fact that you're always looking for donations.
Absolutely.
That we are.
That we are.
We have our Gulf, Afghanistan, Iraq section. We're definitely looking for memorabilia for that upcoming, you know, new portion that we're putting in. But it doesn't stop there. We're always looking for memorabilia from all eras of the war. I mean, we have, like he was saying, we have it segmented to where we have World War I, Civil War, and World War II along one section of it. And then we have Korean War, the Vietnam War, and then the latest Iraq, Afghanistan, and Gulf War section. So it's all sections that we're really looking to, you know, collect memorabilia for.
Anybody that put the uniform on, they signed a piece of paper, you know, that said they were willing to give up their life for their country. Anybody that put that uniform on, whether they served in combat or anything, would be in here. They served their country. And that's important when we talk to the kids. Kids didn't realize that over 470-some thousand people, men and women, died in World War II. 690-some thousand were wounded. Their existence is because of the sacrifices that those people made. And when you say that to those kids, any of you that were here that day, remember it, the kids looked at each other and their mouths dropped and you had them. Because it's never been presented. Your existence is because of the sacrifice that they made. And we had Al LeDuc went through the Normandy invasion, the invasion of Anzio, Sicily, North Africa. He's a walking piece of history. He fought in more combat missions than anybody else in this area. And
Who are you talking about?
Alton LeDuc, he's 97 years old.
He'll be 98 in August.
I had the privilege of taking him to Washington, D.C. as his guardian on the honor flight 2 years ago. Tremendous. individual, humble. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be around. And there's so many of them when you get to know them, what these people went through. And we introduced them to the kids, and the kids just stood there in awe. So there's a niche for the kids to want to learn. You could have heard a pin drop, and it wasn't because they were sleeping. It was because they were absorbing it, and it was quite impressive. So that makes it worth doing. That
I've
does.
seen this thing on TV real quick and I'll get it. And they interviewed these college kids. Some of them didn't even know who we fought in Japan in World War II. I mean,
Yeah.
isn't it disgusting?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Give credit to the teachers out here, though, because these kids knew. These kids were respectful. They had a little bit, but we're just giving them just a little bit more, and it seems to whet their appetite to know. That's why we're here, folks.
Now, what veteran is he?
He's my service dog. This is Sergeant. He's an English pit bull. A lot of people, when they hear pit bull,
Yes.
you're terrified. And the thing with the English pit bull is they were raised and bred to be nanny dogs for kids in England. They make excellent service dogs for those service members. They need them when they come home. This one I've trained, he was actually a rescue dog from the shelter here on 33. And he travels with me. I take him when I do transports. I transport veterans all over the state here, going to their doctor's appointments and various appointments they need to get to. I even do emergency transports for the hospital once in a while down in Saginaw. But what I'd like to say, going back to the presentation we give to the students out here, we had multiple areas that we talked about. We had hands-on with some of the military vehicles, the Deuce and a Half and the quarter-ton Jeeps. We had hands-on with weapons all the way from the history of the beginning of the,
Muskets,
we had our muskets, we had muzzle loaders, all the way up to the
M4s.
current M4s and stuff like that. And then we went from there, we brought them over to the chapel, where we talked about the women's in the service and their roles, and also about the dogs that they use in service and after service. From there, they came over to the Veterans Museum here, and not only that, but they were given a tour through, and each person that was in that museum, and each had done their own sections, they were able to talk about that section and explain more and more about what each item was and how it was used within the wars, and give the kids a hands-on experience that they've never had before without something like this here.
Now, is there anyone else that's got anything that they'd like to say, a story or comment about it?
Come on, Fred. You want to say it?
Jim, talk about your paratroopers. The guys jumped out of, they
Fred
were
was just
pushed
gonna
out of
say
planes.
something. Go ahead, Fred, and then we'll go to Jim.
No, I was just going to say that not only does this museum help people going through and observing what was done, but I think it helped, I know it sure helped me, because when I come home, my wife said I wouldn't say a word. And I got involved here in the museum, and now she says they can't shut me up. But it's good for the veterans too, not just to let people know what we done in the wars, but to let the veterans release some of the things that they didn't want to talk about, the things they didn't want to remember. But this place lets them know that they weren't the only one that had those problems. And it sure helped me. I'm sure it's helped the rest of them too.
That's important.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I didn't fight in any particular war. I fought the Cold War over in Germany, but that was about it. But no, it does help talk about it and let a lot of the families even the older people that don't really know what their husbands or uncles or their brothers did, and they can come over and they can look at it, and they can ask questions and get a better understanding, because, as Fred said, a lot of people just don't talk about it. And we did a service for a veteran the other day that just nobody knew about. He was MacArthur's radio man and went into Japan with him in the first. And even a lot of his family didn't even know stuff like that. And they're all over the place. They're dying off from Second World War, 2,000 a day practically. And only thing that's going to be left is the word that we can get out now.
Well, we can record it right now. Anybody got any more comments? Charlie?
When we open our museum, we usually open it around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And there are times that we don't get out of here before 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's because we have observed other veterans come in. They will look at something in a particular area that was, special to them or they were involved in, and you can just see the expressions on their face when they come in. They're kind of apprehensive because they don't know what they're going to find or what they're going to see. They'll leave. They'll come back 3-4 hours later. They'll come in all the way. They'll go to the section that they were involved in. They'll spend hours at a time. We will not ask a fellow veteran to leave for no reason. We will let them, because what we have found is when they do leave, you can see a sense of peace on their face when they do leave. That
And they always come back.
they have found out something about a friend or another family member that they didn't know. It's moving to see them, and we do not want to interrupt them from having that time. And we'll stay. And at times, John and I have been here, and we'll walk out of the building and just let them have their time.
And I know my brother came back from Vietnam, went down to the airport to pick him up, and scared the hell out of me looking at him. I mean, just looked like a dead man walking, but just so scary.
Not only that, but we do also open up during Bike Week most years. As we'll open up 1 or 2 days during that week,
Okay.
so that veterans during the Bike Week can come in and look at our exhibits.
This
and
year
spend their time.
This year they're going to have a pinning ceremony at Bike Week that's coming up in July, and they're going to have a senator comes up. He's going to put Vietnam era pins, anybody that served during the Vietnam era, because everybody knows that during the Vietnam era, troops were vilified. They were disgraced. I had orders to go to Vietnam. I never made it. I had my orders changed at the last second. But when I went to Germany, when I came home on the 18th of December, and I got into Kennedy Airport, I'm walking with my duffel bag, and I'm proud of what I had done. As Buck Sergeant, I did good. I was proud of my service. And somebody came up from behind me and cold-cocked me right here, spit on me and called me a baby killer, and then took off.
Did that to his brother.
So it wasn't me. It was the uniform, and it was the attitude back then, and that's why you see so much hesitation. Am I right, Gary?
Yeah.
That people get involved because we weren't allowed to join the American Legion. We weren't allowed to join the VFW because there was a mindset that wasn't a war. That was a police action. Same with some of the Korean War veterans. That was a police action. Some of the old boys from World War II say, "Now that was a war," and they wouldn't. Am I correct, Fred? They wouldn't allow.
Yeah, the American Legion's still out you know, we're outcast, even though we were on the front lines
Makes no sense.
facing
There,
the
but-
Russians over there for 3 years. We can't get into any of these groups. So, even Fred here. Fred was in the Special Forces, Green Berets. Got 2 stars on his wings. Why? Insertions in the combat zones. But he can't join the American Legion either because of Congress.
Because of the time of service that he served and where he served is not on the records.
He was in Vietnam before we were in Vietnam. We can say that now.
56.
Yeah. What are they gonna do?
For
Send us
30
back?
years disqualified.
I mean, it's unfair to them.
No,
I
I
want to
wouldn't,
say
I
something real
wouldn't.
quick. I obviously can't use all this on the show.
No.
But what I will do is put the whole thing online.
That'd be great.
And I'll
To
give
let
you a
people
link.
know.
Yeah, and you guys can use it. If you have a website, you can have a link right to it. You can embed it in your site. You can do whatever you want with it. That way everybody can hear everything you've had to say. So, feel free to continue.
Yeah,
Okay.
We get about 1,000, 1,100 a day
Yes.
that goes through this, and I know we're missing some. They go through where they thought, this has turned out to be a big thing. We've had the Michigan-Vietnam Memorial Wall. The ones out of Detroit, they've been up here twice. Lines going through. People want to know when it's going to come back again. It's become part of the fair. The sad thing is it's only open a week of the fair, but make the most of it. And now we're starting to say, okay, groups want to see this. They want to see it.
You want to invite people if they want to get in when they can't. To tell them to come up, tell them who to call.
Yes, if they have a
Phone
group,
right up,
yes.
If
And we don't charge
yeah,
anything to
If-
come in here either.
No.
if anybody is interested in coming through the museum, once we get it back in order, of course, but anybody, they can contact myself at 989-709-6207, or they can contact John.
At 989-329-8238. If we can get groups
Fred?
sizable enough,
Fred?
What?
Contact you too? In
You
case somebody's
two
interested?
guys,
we're the two they usually go to. We're the one, don't live very far away. I'm just a dairy farmer.
I'm just thinking of more people,
Yeah.
they could contact in case they can't get a hold of
Okay, yeah, this
one
is
of us.
They can contact me.
We've got a YouTube site also, a channel that we have about 500,000 people a year visit. So
Yeah.
a lot of people will see it.
Gary Bennett here, he said he would also volunteer.
What's your number, Gary?
989-343-9876.
And then
Let him have
between
his own
us, we
phone
can
now.
all get together and figure out.
And all of a sudden, you guys will get hundreds of phone calls. And hey, I've got
Bring them on.
Well, no, it's what you want. If you can get groups in, the object is to make people aware of the sacrifices that people have made. Just like I said, when I mentioned that, I'm standing up on a podium and I'm seeing the kids in that building down there, and they all went, their mouths literally. Some of the parents said they learned as much as the kids that didn't know. They don't, because they don't teach it much anymore, folks.
Yeah, they teach just the opposite.
We'd love to have more kids, more school groups coming through. Because there's a history that is not taught in the books.
We'll get it up there for you then.
And we've been told that we have probably the best within 5 to 7 counties up in this northern Michigan area here for a museum. And any school from any organization, welcome.
Good. Well, I'm going to go in there and take some video of the inside then.
Okay, and you have to understand, it's a mess right now because everything's pushed over
You
and,
keep saying that.
well, we just want to warn you, it's generally done.
Generally doesn't look like this.
They started banging on the walls when they did the addition on, and all of a sudden, all the pictures were falling off the wall, breaking, so we had to move everything.
Well, do you have any pictures that are already taken?